So Geshe-la will continue with the teachings from the point that he got to yesterday. We'll just continue.
좀 된대기 아니 서터기 또 이제 같이 더 나오라 아니 뒤지 소리 근데 팀버 대화 팀버는 이것도 됐어 맞대 되지 다디 아니 송다 무슨 소리 근데는 소리와 또 팀버 좀 있나 네 대화 용어다 아니 되게 주진님 신나에 두서 아니 공부도 주고 그랬어 연대 나에다 두서 긴디 튜브유나 아니 기부유 받아 수수기다 긴디기 태서 공수기 아니 저어서 아니 공부도 연구를 했어 어디서
So in one of the sutras, Geshe-la thinks it's the Pratimoksha Sutra. There he said, with regard to those who are ordained, but this being true also in general, that if there is harmony among the Sangha, then one's practice of studying, contemplating and so forth will go well, will be successful. So in the same way as this is true for the ordained Sangha, this is true for all sentient beings, for all living beings. So for instance, in the case of a family, if everyone gets along with one another, if one's relationship with one another is harmonious, then whatever one does with respect to the activity, whatever one engages in, it will go well. And then the same is true for any kind of community. So any community, if people are harmonious, they get along with one another, they'll be happier and they'll be more successful. And then the same is true for a country, it's true for the entire world, it's true for the entire planet.
제자 뒤치 뒤전에 변나 가시고래 미사치기 나로는 아니 이제 뒤라는 뒤도 저와의 기민이 차세调查되던 점도 된 대어로 아니 지기지가 맞춤버지 롱나 리친 대대나 체포에서를 자료다 정하나 팀담에서를 기부 요말에 대어 기고 다 되는 대가 되다 팀부진 대회나 고기부진 기부 요로
So also in the case of a family, so taking the example of a husband and wife, well, once you got married, well, you need to stay together and might as well do so by way of getting along, by way of being harmonious with one another, being kind to one another. So otherwise, if one doesn't do that, if there's no harmony among husband and wife, it seems like one has to give some kind of duty. It's like some kind of duty. It's like a prison. One is like kept in a prison. So in that sense, since one has to stay together, one might as well do the best, make the best out of it, and in that case, both are happier. So His Holiness usually explains that with regard to the issue of Tibet, if by way of violent means the issue of Tibet would be resolved by way of violent means, of course the fact that it's actually not possible, and that even if it were possible to solve the Tibetan issue with violence, the problem is that if one were to do that, then with the Chinese, the relationship between the Tibetans and the Chinese would suffer from that, because they live together. It's not like they live in different worlds. If they were to live in different worlds and didn't have to live together, the situation would be different. If they'd be separated by a river, for example, and one lived on that shore and the other on the other, but that's just not the case. So therefore, it doesn't make sense to apply violent means, because Chinese and Tibetans have to live with one another. Now we all know that this makes sense, that we have to get along with another, that our relationship needs to be harmonious. But now the issue is like how to be more harmonious, how to get along with one another better, how to be kind-hearted with one another. So if there's only a self-centeredness, if both are self-centered, if both parties or everyone involved is self-centered, then it's like, I want this, I, and there's no way that one can get along with one another. So also Genro Sangyatso, the former director of the IVD, he said in one of his writings, if you want to experience harmonious kind of speech or harmony, kind of getting along with one another, harmonious speech, then you have to give up your selfish attitude. You have to give up your self-concern. So without that, it's unable to bring forth this kind of harmony.
Karsigure Zewa Senata, Ningji Senata, Dada Hashiri Yang Tsikin de Bijitangido, Susoli Kyo, Nidan Kyoguchiana, and Ningji Sinpa, there's Tongjung Danta, Bijitayachi, a digital and Kondrosadi, like Tujayi Labi Hijada, Charada Ningji Ures, Tindigi Ningji, Dada, by Ningji Jin, Geshimbo said, the Ningji Rego, with Kakareta.
So when we talk about kind-heartedness or compassion, so whatever we want to call it, whatever we want to talk of, so here in this case, some people misunderstand that kind of compassion here in the sense that one has pity on someone, that one feels sorry for someone who is lower than oneself. And when one gets angry with that person, one may say, well, you are actually an object of my compassion, you're an object of my pity. So this is not what is meant here. This is not the idea of kind-heartedness. This is not the idea of compassion in this case here. So, with regard to the kind of compassion that we talk about here, this involves, with regard to the object of one's compassion, some kind of regard for the other person, respect for the other person. So, the way we should relate to that person is with regard or with respect.
Dina Xinyang Ningji Siyedi Susu Munjin Chidu Chikjina Tuguyo, and a Pa Munjin Chidu Zamzam Daya, Dichigdua, Karsugure. This Simjing Gange Teva Toma Lamsa Miji Shojuyuna, Adako Ningji Shimbuto Siyachi. The DS of the Daya, one era Nishimina Maina, Mashi Shuna the Yodera, Simjituno, Tony said Mina Chimachuma, the Luigi Papa 이 켜봤다가 그게 연합니다. 뭐시 와도 딱 켜버진 생활에. 와, 음악이 켜버진 생활에 책들을 꾸준히 연합하고 신야 민의 지마 중앙에 루지 법을 당하다 써봐. 대점기 버셔도 인지 치워요. 주투고 연합니다. 삼다에도.
So likewise, some people, with regard to compassion, when they identify compassion, that they believe that if we have compassion with regard to another person, then upon seeing the suffering of someone, crying and feeling emotional about it, in particular shedding tears, that this is a sign of compassion. But this is to be seen. This is to be seen. It's not. It's debatable whether that's really the case. Of course, in the scriptures, it does talk about the kind of reaction upon seeing the suffering of sentient beings. One's eyes well up with tears, and the hairs of one's body stand up as a reaction to that suffering. But actually, it says in that same text, so whether that is actually, there's a pervasion or not, whether that is always the case, that is debatable. And anyway, it says at the end of this text that there's a special reaction, like a verbal or physical reaction that becomes visible as a result of compassion. It just talks about a special kind of reaction.
심충중 디게 네 미세야 소비 내가 독자도 제토고 말해 디게 돈 팬더도 요르데 이내 대점기 닝지 lep두고 요나면은 섬다에도.
So we talk about lacking kind of courage, being the Tibetan word is kind of being small-minded, but it doesn't mean narrow-minded. It rather means like having little courage, not being very courageous. So this kind of attitude, sometimes when people who have that kind of, who are a little timid or who are not very courageous, so when they see suffering, the suffering of someone else, they may react by bursting into tears and so forth. So then, of course, the positive, can be regarded as a positive quality, being timid, because a timid person would not go out and engage in great negativity, such as killing someone. But whether that is a sign of being compassionate, starting to cry or crying in the face of someone suffering, that is debatable, or that needs to be discussed.
다 같이 미주 쇼네 마쇼네 ene 파주 동요와데 토네 디기도다로 로버체가 주디 수술뢰 당치 좀 그토네 다 닝지 친구 유나 뢰당 친구 제도 그래 닝지 충중 받으면은 뢰당 충중 받을 제도고 말해 디 친구 제도도나 미주 마쇼네 닝지 친구 차대요 다 미주 쇼딩에 임바치다 제가 주디 수술뢰 당큐는 제도고 민도나 다 디셈바 충중레마도 닝지 친구 계제는 말해 됩니다.
Now, with regard to the strength or the strength of compassion, so whether one's compassion is strong or weak, well, irrespective of whether one starts crying in the face of seeing someone suffering or not, the point is here that if one's compassion is strong enough and one then is able to give up oneself in order to then help this other person, that is called compassion, whether you cry or not. And on the other hand, if you burst into tears upon seeing the suffering of another person, but instead of giving up totally yourself, you just give up yourself to a certain degree, well then the compassion is definitely weaker. So if you can't give up if you just cry and you can't give up yourself in order to help that person, well that's a sign of being timid. It's not a sign of having compassion.
다 미신달에 소소를 따오. 소소를 있네. 다 심지 동요 통한데 미지셔에서 마로 드나. 이치로 좋아해 말해. 다 따야 된다라. 야 소소를 강에 태용도 미지셔에디 겨울을 줘도 좋면도 디마 좋아제. 신기 동요 통한 미지셔에디 겨울을 줘요나 안타가 인지 대시리 줘. 차샤는 되기로. 다 신기 동요 섬디에 미지셔에디 겨울을 줘. 소소 강에 태대 미지셔에디 겨울을 줘요나 샘초를 줘요. 뭐 이치로 줘요.
So then also it's important to see with regard to oneself and others. So when we see the suffering of another person, if we start crying, but we also start crying with regard to our own suffering. So then it's to be seen whether that is actual compassion or not, whether that's not just being timid. So basically a person who, with regard to their own suffering, their tears become less, so they cry less with regard to their own suffering, whereas with regard to the suffering of others, then they show more emotions, there's more, one sheds more tears. In that case, that's probably more of a sign of compassion. But in the other case where oneself cries when one experiences suffering oneself, and the same with regard to another person, that seems to be a sign of timidness.
제자다 파절의 제와 피다고디 제바이나 디기 마제를 님을 두고 그리고 셔대용 거래 지통대용 디지도 마제 님을 두고 팬비심대용 두선에 공조도 두절의 님을 두고 디나신 디기 로도 인도 게임 두선에 shum바 두절의 님을 두고 되지요.
So, with regard to another person, if one's kind-heartedness towards that person is increased in response to receiving their problems, etc., then arrogance will be reduced and instead respect will arise. And then if one wants to benefit that person, that is an antidote with regard to anger directed at that person. And also, if at that time some kind of strength of mind, some determination is generated in one's mental continuum, well, that serves as an antidote to feeling disheartened.
디지 뒤전에 대신에 라고에 디지자 tumbu 마요에디 따저에 시서디 공조다 디디긴지 tumbu메 마차 잠재 마담이긴 야 디차세위 제가 공조디 마 시찬에 양마제디기야 팀을 주버지 지유서래 마제기 또 팀부서 마 주버지 답변은 다 민니제 아니 다 공조사리제 디겐지 카마탄 되요나 다 저분이다나 다 시사님다나 카마탄이 되요나 공조 시사래 이마 같이 조세도 공조디 자사래디 다 카디 담고 코이다고 다이딩 마제로 공조 말로 수수다두고 아마 진짜 다 마제디게야 디다다 까르무도 다 제왕문에 지게나 마타기 레베기 제와 천된디 제와이나 마제데 니가라마 차론도 전에 디 강에 책 말아.
So here in the case of not getting along with one another, so here in this case, because of anger, for instance, one is unable to get along with another person. There's not enough love and kind-heartedness with regard to the other person. But it may also be the case that although anger towards that person has weakened, still out of arrogance, it is still possible that it's impossible to get along with another person. So let's take the example of two friends or two partners. So first they had a problem, they had some fallout, and at that time one is angry with the other. But then thereafter, even though there's no longer any anger, there's the expectation that the other person starts to talk first. So first the other person has to take the first step. So that is out of this the type of arrogance. A type of arrogance here, that one is unwilling to take the first step to become friends again or to get close again. So this is not a sign of sincere love or care or kind-heartedness with regard to the other person. Because in the case of sincere care for the other, then this wouldn't happen. One would be willing to take the first step and to patch things up and make sure one gets along again with one another.
Tadile yanamenen zewa chiru tangsene ta digi tone pajole zidong chiru zhodi nga ye bangbi tone ane pa tabu di che yong chogolwa yanamenen nga ye di chiru tang nga ye di chiru tangne ane pa timu che chi
So there are two cases. In one case, one increases one's love, one increases one's kind-heartedness with regard to the other person, and then one gets along better with the other person. So that would decrease the arrogance, and one gets along with the other person. Or one increases one's arrogance and gets along better with the other person.
만주기 수술 내진 뭐만데 제마 체니 용데 거라 콘트로지에 당 뒤서 그래서 내진 뭐만데 제주 제용나 내진 뭐네디 마치부 소문네디 수장원네디 수지지 콘트로디요라 수지지 마제들와 그래서 디데야 마제제지 고 콘트로원도 소랬다 마 콘트로원도 조금에 마미에 가져라니 그 니 파티지 코랑가 제원도 쓰는 게 뒤지고 말해 마마 제원도 조금에 네 파티지기는
So, in our case, usually when we, with regard to a person, now when we have love towards that person or we feel kind-heartedness towards that person, so instead of getting angry here in this case, so getting angry is the actual enemy. That which really harms us is one's anger, one's arrogance. Those are the actual enemies. Those are the states of mind that harm oneself. But then, if one has the arrogance thinking, I will not be under the control of my own. Sorry, this is not working. If one doesn't come under the control of. Sorry, this is not working. Maybe the big microphone, yeah, it goes in and out. Okay. So if one has the arrogance, so instead of having yeah. Okay. All right. So instead of instead of arrogance directed towards the other person, if one has the feeling of arrogance in the sense like, I will not do this, I will not behave like that, that is the kind of arrogance that would be appropriate in that case, such that one does not get angry with the other person. So instead there's this kind of pride. I myself will refrain from getting angry. So that would be, in this case, a situation where it's appropriate to have that kind of arrogance.
아니, 먼저 뒤에다 되게 정세를 대비했던 능력이 수수수비 능력이다, 치료라다, 원고미다 뒤속에 내가 가르치기 위해 먼저 하고 간 거라. 다 치수는 이제 다 등장기 다 멤버들 중에 심주체니 다다 하고 걸다 내가 가르게 닝기 내가 가르치기 로아 가르치기 침배 내가 가르치 하고 걸어 뭐 디나신 맞을 시버 링미다 안저기 지단 잡지도 샤샤마도 디 시달 내가 가르 세우지 하고 와마로 다 신주 제용도 아니 간저기 닝지지 요로 다 중중지도 요요 가르와 근데 닝지디기 내가 가르치 요래 세 섬담이나 다 단단 먼저 디 가서 미몽부치기다 엔zem제레 아니 파조기 균을 쳐야래 인이다다야래 아니 소체레 인디기 내가 두자 뭐지 체네 다디기 파조 네버도 네버체 디게베 아니 정하나 저거에 소소소도 저거에 강에 뭐지 미치니 말아 미통다 뭐 치다 뭐 분다 뭐 강에 되대요 딜레디 다디게디 가르치는 체레세나 다 콘도다 신의 제와 마당의建议 강에 되체로 다 디기 이니 린제다니 수 대체나 신다 디기 강에 맞춰야 되는 도서라 아니 가르치는 맞춰 버려 군저라 런나 다 견체 맞춰야 용식이래데 뭐지라 다 제와 대서 유대버디 있겠다 제가 디라가 있나 내기 단다버도 미마세야다 밀라 네바마케야다 다 두샤마체야다 디견기 나라 강에 맞춰 버디 다 긴신다야 용구르데 뭐지 내기 저 충중지 유대버디 딱게들 다 팬터들 내가 제대로 다디 먼저 다 친구다 개마 수술 내가 채워넣으시 세상 딘디chen 디성로 코바이나 수술기 제와 충중들 단 채로 저러 신 디메나 베나 개마기 진다 아무군지나 개마 땡기는 되네데 세트 자로로 하고 샤디섬 테스다 자그레 세지마도 디요마로 다 그게 진단데 하고나 디메나 아니 바게 차다디 정수도 그메보다 하고는 아니 콜레 레고로다 어디서로지 딘데 섬다에 유서로
So in the case of someone from a villager, they're not aware of their own internal organs, of the importance, the necessity of their internal organs. And it's only upon meeting a doctor, upon a doctor telling them the importance of the heart, the importance of the lung, the liver, and so forth. So similarly, in the case of, in general, our own states of mind, we do not really know our own states of mind. We're not aware of our own compassion, in the case of kind-heartedness, compassion, so we're not really aware of those. So it's necessary to examine them, to examine our own states of compassion. So taking the example of someone who is very deceitful, like a person who acts against the law, who takes advantage of others, bullies others, steals from others, etc. So this kind of negative activity can lead a person to being imprisoned. It can even lead them to being executed and so forth. So here in this case, the reason for engaging in those activities is their anger. It's due to their anger, the arrogance, etc. in their mind, and their kind-heartedness, their care with regard to others is not sufficient. Of course, there are other conditions that play a part in the fact that they engage in those activities. But if we look at our own life, so in the case of our own life here, we do not engage in such activities. And again, of course, there are other conditions that are responsible for that. But the fact that we do not engage in those negative actions and therefore do not suffer the consequences of engaging in such actions is that we have some love, we have some kind-heartedness or a caring attitude with regard to others. So therefore, even though this may be weak, this kind of love may be weak, but it still benefits us in the same way as our liver, our kidney, and so forth benefit us. So in that sense, the kind of love, the kind of kind-heartedness we possess right now is of great value. And it's in the case of, for example, our kidney. If there were no real value with regard to our kidney, we would say, okay, just take it. Although there may be some pain upon removing one's kidney, but other than that, there's no real disadvantage. So actually, it doesn't really. We understand that our kidney cleans the blood and serves a great role in our body. So we consider this to be very valuable. We consider our kidney to be very valuable. So it should be, with regard to our own compassion, that sense of value should be generated.
딘디 제바이나 페이지 심심중 신예대 계층부 자료도 심심중의 남샤디 신나 디 닝지레 디 대바레 디 템바레스 수수수 주구주고라 디기 레가 디지고 디기 레가 디지고 알스 수수수 주구주고라 신시바 신도도 저기지마도 지 수수수 디미도 다 디주구주 차데 에네 신에 다 디기 먼저 디 팽교 알스 닝지 디기다 먼저 팽교 알스 레디 디르네 디 칼레 디 파세레 답시체 코라디 슈치로 다에 답시체 베나다 먼저 침바디기 에네 가르사다 차가리는 디체를 팽기와레스 디 하고 사데 침바를 내가 접셔서 내가 세레메 다에 가자라 미지기야 침바도 슈치에메레스 지테스 제가 고 슈치로 다 먹거든 야메 다에 디나시 다 닝지딩 것서 망보 예배 나로는 닝지신 추치주 다 띵어서 펜도시의 닝지레샤스 디하고 차디 디르 네기 두서 카페자에게 야 쇠바다 다트즈 메다에 디리지 야 코톱슈기에 치도니 다디 고베기 다 메다에 리지 지부지양 용도
So here in this case it also becomes important to get an understanding of the presentation of minds and mental factors. So the different types of mental factors such as compassion, faith, mindfulness and so forth. So understanding this is this mental factor, this is this particular mental factor, and this is the function that this particular awareness performs. So it may seem initially when we talk about awareness or consciousness, there's just one type of awareness. But then when we learn to differentiate and distinguish them, we become aware, we can identify them, we become aware of their unique functions. And in that way also foster the ones or enhance the ones that are beneficial, such as compassion. So understanding the benefits, understanding the advantages of compassion, and in that way to get rid of those states of mind that harm compassion, so to decrease those awarenesses that are an antidote or that harm our compassion. And so in that way, similar to our liver, so our liver performs a function, Geshe-la says, maybe like cleaning our blood, etc. So it performs an important function for the body. It's one of those organs that are very important. And we make sure that we don't get a liver infection, for example. So just the other day, he heard of someone who received some medicine in order to strengthen the liver, strengthens one's liver. So likewise here, we should do the same with regard to our own compassion. To understand the benefits, we should understand the advantages or the value of our own compassion, and then try everything that this is increased, that anything that may harm our compassion is being decreased, and that instead we counteract any kind of opposing force that opposes our own compassion, and instead apply medicine such as patience. So states of mind that help our compassion to increase, that help to preserve it, and take it like medicine. In the same way as we would take medicine for our organs, we take medicine in order to preserve and enhance our compassion. But not just on a personal level, even from the point of view of society, living in society. So how many problems are there in this world because compassion has not spread far enough, because of the lack of compassion? So here we should reflect upon not just problems in general, but we should engage in a detailed examination of all the different problems that a lack of compassion leads to in our society.
야르기 조세 어디 첨보지 나로라 아니 아자 마은체 부부께서도 요말 가르제레스도 아니 암지자르치 저런 부부께서들은 나서둘라 다 하고 말아 수석이 도라 아니 샤주체고라 다 조선 배셔 가시 교보도서 신가도서 좀다 조선 당고에 샤주 당고에 우지선 내쳐라다 배 미망부시오지 주거인 신주진 하고 암지 증거시죠 다 디나시니 다 지게 디바데 유지 말이마다 다 장을 남도도 되는 뭐야 하게 샤주 당고들라 아니 되게 샤주 당산에 제가 야 나지 맹하신다 따주 개마요 개마구마 쇼사 진짜 맞은 나나 암지를 좋아하자고래 아니 암지를 좋아하면은 아니 같이 참 다 디나 신식이 다 하게 맞으다 강에 제도 로봇이 친구 돈이 디징에도 좋다 증수마도 좀 미기자 그저 셈나로라 강에면은 군소리 시에고 구마 잡아라 마시에고치 자가이도 또 police래로 구마 잡아라 시에고 말 police래 시에데 같이 저 다디나시 아니 사가 타나 사가인지네 다셈나 제와면은 파게라 페페샤라야다 디마도 파진네만에도 시다 뜻다이 말와 다 그도 남산에 있는 테스트도 하고래 남사하고 디마도 귀는데도 삼로버타이 말와 다 딘다딘 시와이나 아니 현재 휴차도서 다 점을요 거라 그게 제와디 충충 친구이나 아니 가서 어제다 나가면 밑에 되게 루바스에 시해줘라 뒤로 차로다 참아 지기지로 신나지고 했는데 차 가을 더위네
So, for instance, in India, in some of the bigger villages, there are cases where women go to see a doctor and the doctor tells them there's a problem with your womb. We have to remove it. There's a problem. You cannot give birth to a child. And then the women have to undergo surgery, so they have to pay for their own surgery, sell their fields or sell their properties in order to be able to undergo this surgery, which in actuality is not necessary, because what the doctors do is they take their kidneys, they steal their kidneys, and instead of actually there being any disease, any problem with their womb, that's not the case. So the doctors just lie to them, say they have to undergo surgery, and in that way steal their kidney. So if you think about this absence of love, this absence of care for their patients, that they use their patients in such a horrible way. So this is something that happens here in India. It probably doesn't really happen in the West, but nonetheless, just think about the fact that this could happen, that this is a possibility. Or in some cases, the law is supposed to protect you. So when there are people like those working for the law, sometimes instead of having to have fear of thieves and murderers and so forth, you need to be afraid of the police because of the lack of care and compassion. So it can be potentially dangerous to depend on them, and instead one needs to be careful with regard to the police. Or in some cases, when you go to a restaurant, so in order to make money, they don't really consider the fact that they may give substances or may add substances to the food that can potentially harm their customers. Directly, they would avoid any kind of harm because that's too obvious. But indirectly, if there's substances that they add to the food, for example, that are harmful, well, as long as they get money, they don't care. So if you think about this, if this happens, this is a very strange world where love becomes weaker and weaker, where there's less and less love. So that's a very strange world. It becomes a very strange world where this caring attitude is missing. And it would be like the way we talk about certain places, or people talked about them in the ancient times, like a place of demons. It becomes like our world becomes like a place of demons. So in the sense that wherever one goes, there's danger that one is getting harmed, that one receives harm due to the absence of kind-heartedness and care.
다디지리 다 레전에 나오고 얘기하면도 다디지리 지단 제자 거와를 차샤네 디인디 다 제와디 여기 다 얘기 디 제거나 다 정말 무시 숭에디 다 차도라 다 야쇼 유나면은 다 lap제 나로라 아니 장인지 로좀 제토에 중거이나 다 슈치슈도 비인기도 봐
So it's not necessary to cite all the different cases, all the different examples. However, whether it's in general or in particular cases, it is important to increase one's love. It's important to increase one's care, one's kind-heartedness. So the best thing in order to bring this about is what His Holiness, His Holiness's endeavor to bring more love and care to the education in schools. So for children to receive an education with regard to being more loving, being more kind.
기치디 전에 제상 다 지기제 시험도 참참나야 되어로 된지기다 지속이 내가 숙침부 제마 투에 지나 다 수수기를 수수 제도로 다 수수기를 제와 얘기 수수 당도로 다수 마음이 찍다마다 가려요 다 집어는 가리 뱅그랬어야지 그러 다디 지속이 계절에 아니 집어 걸었다 미참을 기로마다는 가지고 기로다네 가리 뱅그랬어 삼로티 다 예지 차디고로 다 레디 고려가면 기지시디 디삼도 고음이다. 근데 신동 따는 팽겨라도 신동 따기도 뒤에 삼도 뒷따나 신동 따고 말아. 아니 미신다 상황마다는 가 신동 지니지 주주지지 야스지 따는 대점지게 지 고려를 가리 팽겨랬어. 디삼당입니다. 수수기에 따 디제나야 미상화 삼도 따나 신동지에 따고 말아다. 근데 수수기에 디삼마다 뭐지 심식히니 따 가족이 뒤답듯이 다 규화지 가장을 때문에 지송해야 되다. 그런 것을 되고 태용하라 됐지.
So therefore, in general, so there's a sense that when we live in society, well, yeah, we can help as one person, we can help a few people, but there's no sense that we can actually help all of everyone. And some people may feel very strongly about this, thinking that I cannot really make a change. I cannot change others. There's only very little I can do. So therefore, how can I really make a change? So why should I help others? Because I cannot really bring forth any change. I cannot change society. So there's no real point for me to help others, to generate more love and compassion, because it won't really affect the entire world. But we don't have that attitude when it comes to, for example, preserving the environment. If we want to plant more trees, even though as a single person we're able to only plant maybe 1 tree or 2 trees or 10 or 100 trees, so that really doesn't make much difference. But this thought doesn't usually arise for those who want to preserve the environment, saying that I cannot do much, so I cannot save the entire environment, and no one else is really doing it, so I won't do it. This attitude doesn't arise. But if everyone were to think along those lines, then there wouldn't be any change. So it's important that we will ourselves try our best with regard to generating more love and compassion. Because otherwise, if everyone thought along those lines, there really wouldn't be any change. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama usually says, it's necessary for us directly to make a change. We need to directly bring forth some change.
먼저 참아 전물리기 차시 차들 전물리신 로가지 개요만 수술을 넣어서 차시지 차대 인자 차시직의捐쇼나 전물리捐쇼로 와래 차시직의 페나 전물리 페버 제워로다 페나다 니기 수불을 계제 시바이나 수비 차시 뭐 예배 나눠는 서디나 차시 충중지에 대해서 다 디고샤나 이제요 또고샤 다이 지금 매가들 야사디 또 스카샤나 이 지금 어디요? 제가 거의 찍을 라임이다. 그때 고주시 태고 제가 수수기를 정제지 깨봐나 전부링을 고주 태차다 다가는 그래서는 차시를 넣어서 차진 뒤로만
So with regard to this world, we're actually a part of this world. We are part of this world. The world does not, we do not exist as a separate entity from this world. So therefore, anything that happens with a part of this world, anything that, any kind of harm that happens to a part of this world also harms this world. And any benefit with regard to a part of this world benefits this world. So in that sense, likewise with our body, if you talk about the body, so all the different parts that make up the body. So Geshe-la pointed at his front tooth, He said this is just a small part of his body, but if you were to remove this front tooth, the whole body would look ugly. And so, if instead, if there's like a gap, there's a gap in between your front teeth, and you add something there, you replace it with a tooth, then the body is beautified. So in that sense, therefore, even though just something is just a part of it, but because of being a part of it, there's a reason for trying to benefit it, because the whole entity is in that way benefited. So to move, if you move one aspect of something, you move the entirety.
다 디나신 파게 갈라오레 수수기 수수 이엔디 말라 벤나 미치기나 나 미치 나올라 미치 아니 저번에 바체 룽차오체 데디 제바이나 아니 미차마 나 미차마로 마지와 차고다 다디 도초기 미치 시신 들어와 아니 좀 시시체 엔티 외바이나 나나들 대지시기 다시 대 고려지 된 거로 디나신 예수스 이 고려 김제다 정화디 나로라 미직 저번에 뭐였나 아니 그 셈나야 마시워지 재미지 내용다 다 대지시기 파게야 가지지디 외바이나 이행기 고려들이야 시대 고려지 된 거로
Likewise, in the case of, let's say, in the case of one's own case, so looking left and right in terms of one's direct or immediate environment, taking the family for instance, if one of the family members engages in a lot of bad behavior, negative behavior, and is very angry, expresses a lot of anger, then the whole family is affected by the behavior of that person. On the contrary, if there's one person who's always very relaxed, very peaceful, always smiling, again it has an effect on the entire family. Similarly, when you take the case of neighbors, if you're surrounded by a neighbor who engages in negative activities or engages in kind of rude behavior, then even with regard to one's own peace of mind, it will affect one with regard to one's own mind. And if on the opposite, or in the contrary, then if the people surrounding oneself, the neighbors and so forth, are kind and relaxed, etc., that will also have effect on one's own mental continuum.
아니 제와다 샴페인스게 믹스를 거는 마제네 제와 매바 보라 제댕이지네 이머지니 뜻에 하고 말데 군대네 베게 다와다 로커런냠도 til에 여버체 소소냠도 참보다 딘디게 매버체 밀레 샴페인체 딘디게 매버체 이네 제와 주니 마젠 댕이지나 엔 다와지 로직 조세데 제만에 미데 타운데 심케시시 대차이다 베게 직 견자지도 어디 그지 미상을 집에 이게 가지 미디 통 되는 세마테 스페시시 차트지 미디 닌지메 야다 닌지메 말에 다 닌지 유면다 하고 말다 가지 무슨 신변체 버튼이 마통네 변나고 저 자자로 개나지요 됐든지 자자나로 무슨 집에 내가 제 된데도 제요 말 아니 소소님도 참고세 된데게 요 말 이내 호라 단 룽땡아 좀 들이킨 토에 매딩이다 세외기 자취킨 토에 매딩이 제 유니 뭐 제한테 라신이 가고 찾아야지.
So here, with regard to leave aside kind-heartedness, like benefiting another person, but if there's someone who does not engage in any kind of violent or harmful behavior, so without expressing great love towards others, without engaging in a lot of great beneficial action towards others, but if there's a person who does not harm others, who does not engage in any kind of violent behavior, upon being around that person for some time, if then one is separated and one meets that person again, there is a sense of delight. If one meets that person, then there's a sense of delight meeting this person, because of this person refraining from any harmful activities. So Gena says there was one teacher, he gave an example of one of his teachers who did not work in general for the society, for others. He didn't engage in a lot of great activity, but at the same time, he never did something harmful. He was always peaceful, and he did not engage in harmful activities. And therefore, upon meeting this person, there's a sense of happiness, a sense of delight meeting this person.
Kena chiore, kena yang pesema sambura che musura roba chigore pugu tu sule pe roba che labde ki ken che pugu tu su ken semsang sentai ken semsang 제가 어제 참에 아니 부부가 딜라인자 어제 참에 겐sem상 겐 체문에디 하이
So there was one teacher, teacher at Jopong. So he was very kind-hearted. He had a very kind heart, and so he would always help the other young monks. He would help the young monks in the monastery. He was one of the teachers at the school, at the monk school, and so his name was again kind-hearted. So, or the teacher of the kind-hearted teacher. And so Genla says, we all called him Gen kind-hearted. And Genla says, I don't even know his actual name.
세상에 딜라고에 다 같이 소소를 로봇에는 소소 가고 요 아자자 소소 로봇 마체는 미션다의 야고체와 통해 소소 가고 차고도 때문에 시대디 먼저 미쳐 경계를 보고 춘준이 뒤지기도 가자 정말 미소에 들어와 그 때문 벌써 그게 가고체와 때문에 아니 가위 남줄 때 네버지와 통해는 막 가위 남줄 때 단정이 고해라 이 가준다 디어라 내 진이 디다다 로봇 진이 니지 남주 댄서를 제가 안정한테 알레베고니디 담주디잖아요. 근데 페버징에 알레베고디 담비도스 부고디 내가 제딩이 입진기 알레베고디 레기미도스 알레베고스다 알레베고스다 카도스 돌 네, 지기 자사게 돌
So if someone helps us, in that case we're happy. We'll be pleased with this person who benefits us. So the same is true if we benefit someone else. This person will be happy with us. And so this is also true with regard to small children. So as His Holiness talked about it, His Holiness during his teachings, he mentioned this little movie that he saw, like the little cartoon that he saw, where when there was a person that showed kindness towards others, liking others, when they expressed liking for others, the child who watched this particular movie was pleased. Whereas in the case of another person expressing a negative kind of behavior or displaying a negative behavior, expressing dislike, the child who watched this person, there was a reaction of dislike. So likewise, here Gena has also heard about seeing some kind of, well, he calls it a cartoon. So a kind of cartoon here where one doll, like a doll-like being, helped others, and another one that harmed others. And upon being asked, then the children were then asked, they were given these dolls, and the one that represented the harm was shown to them, and the one that represented or that showed the kind of help and benefit, and they were asked to choose the doll that they preferred, and they preferred the doll that benefited others. They didn't choose the one that harmed others.
아저기 참에 생각되듯이 요인자 아니 제사 심편 제거이나 아니 가부징이 먹고 욕그래 조금 먹고 자루라.
Since our psychology, our psychological makeup is the same for all of us, we all like when someone benefits others. We're all pleased, we're all happy when upon encountering benefit by others.
다 저거 뭐 보이는 야고면도 미드지 소설 가고 뭐 붙이는 야고면도 되나 다 신변지의 상황지는 지주다.
If there is someone be liked by a lot of people, well then engaging in cherishing others should be kept a secret. One doesn't need a lot of friends. One doesn't want to have a lot of companions. One should keep it secret.
다 딜레야 가서 다 디모네 답다 저기 유나면아 가시 딜레도 하장기 룸차고다 내심 제등이 밀는데 보면 뭐 제등인지는 디네 기기요부터 준 하마원에 고통 뒤에 때 셈은 마시오래지 칠레요도 야 하장기 셈바 상보데 딘디 요버이나 디 하마원에 니주디 칠레레드네 때 셈나라 효도 차주에다 시대레지 디 용거레스 디 유나 상보게 자다면 제 가고 있다.
Geshe-la says, well, he's not sure whether this is really the case, but it seems to be the case that if one encounters a person who in actuality engages in a lot of negative action, who's a very aggressive, a very angry type of person, but without knowing that this is their kind of behavior, their kind of personality, one will naturally have a sense of discomfort in the presence of that person. While on the other hand, if there's a person who is extremely kind-hearted, who engages in a lot of positive activities, benefiting others, etc., who's very loving and so forth, even if one doesn't know that beforehand, it is said that being in the presence of this person, one's mind becomes happier, one's mind is more relaxed. So if this is the case, there's not much one can think, there's not much thought that can influence that. It will just naturally arise. That kind of attitude will naturally arise when one is in the presence of those people.
Tati karina, mungmbi nyubajiina, yanamenani namjurchi yuebache, aje namjurdi dire simunzi chema thungi ya khara tukja tukchima tukja yuna namjurchi tengu yirwa. Yago yuna ya dilababi namjurchi tengu yuebache. 다 남주딩 어제 지시 자모토 인자 된데 인식이래 단다티 변나티라이다 김무셔에나 김무즈마셔에다 김무원에셔에다 아니 디치디 김무즈마셔디 미르니마 등마레세 디시에도다 다 어제 하고 말하다 심주 진행도제 하고 걸어 디나 신세부터자 제딩에다 야고 제딩에데 거치를 내용도 남주지 얘기를 거라라
So, whether this has to do with the subtle energy in one's body or has to do with the kind of expression that these different people express or display in the case of a person who's very positive or in the case of a person who's very negative. So there may be a subtle kind of expression, a subtle type of expression that is displayed that we're not really aware of. We can't really explain it. So for us, it's like something that's subconscious. It's a subconscious kind of reaction to that person. So as it's also said, for instance, when someone smiles and there's a fake, in the case of a fake smile or in the case of a sincere smile, it is explained that in the case of a fake smile, there are no real wrinkles that pertain to one's smile around the eyes. So the eyes are not affected by the smile. So whether it is something like that, it could be that it's something similar, that there's some kind of effect that is very subtle that we actually don't know, that we are not aware of. But those who examine expressions, those who examine facial expressions and so forth, they would be able to actually talk about it. But we just react to these subtle facial expressions that are a result of very positive actions or very negative actions.
얘기 더 빈자 조치요래. 저 안에 거기 바라지르다 반주를 어디 야고차 아니 수고 당보체 슉 야고요 같이 디디지디잖아요. 아니 저기 다 누버지거나 세다야. 아니 수수 빈자 된다. 아니 신다들 초대교회나 딩이 빈자です. 딩이 빈자는 뇌기고 하려는 마가오체 나가도 토드는 뻑뻑지는 저 어디지니 다 여대고 저것이 다 대신하지에다 초리다 리차데로 다 쇼라니 김에 종 엔디 강의 친구시체 디 젠다 코라치고 주네 많이 잡는데 유행부지 디 레레진도 데데 아니 신의 삼로도서 찾아 다 미다 코려데 아니 수수는 지가 임바데 다디 오늘 니만 가제디 디치고 말아 수수는 지도 수수는 지치도가 말아 다 가제디 데스마 차 아니 수수치고데 삼타데 수수는 지 참아 하고 단도 지중샤선 데 아니 쇼레다 마 지소나 마 되는데 아니 니마 딘데 보보체서다 딩가체체서다 뜻을 참아나 뜻이 되는스파 당자백 뜻하는 불려지 먼저 컨트롤세 슈퍼 불려지 디지셔 미참을 접으셔서 다 가봐 전에 끼고 됐어 생계만 다 쓰기 되게 저거 충충 굉장히 인생 유서들을 내리 끼고지 야시다도 되게 같이네요 파에 되지 저의 중에 버때 지금 무슨 좀 디마잖아 맞지버지 열었다 다 디디치는 문도스 디디다 이거
So Vishala has a relative, an older man, an older person, a Cho, or an older brother as they call it. So like a relative, a male relative, who at some point everything was going really well for him. So his situation, everything was going well. He was very healthy. He had a lot of strength, and he didn't have any problems. So at that time, when he was full of energy and everything was going well for him, when there was some trouble, when there were some problems within other relatives, or when relatives had problems with other people, he displayed great arrogance in the sense that he took the side of those who were related to him, who were closer to him. So he took sides. It's going in and out again. Sorry, it's not working. Should I leave this on the table? Okay. Does this work? Okay. With regard to his reaction, so those who benefited, those who were parts of his relatives, he was on their side, and then he would put down the other ones, and he would be fighting with them. Anyway, so he was very partial with regard to his friendships. There was a lot of arrogance, etc. Then at some point, things turned around for him. So his wife passed away, and he experienced a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties. So at that time, he lost this kind of confidence, that kind of arrogance. He was on his own and just recited Om Mani Padme Hum. And at that time, he started to reflect upon his mistakes. He started examining, he started contemplating all the mistakes he earlier committed. So previously, due to his arrogance, those mistakes, those errors that he had engaged in, they were not obvious to him. But slowly, because his arrogance had come down, he understood, he became aware of what he had done wrong early on. And then with respect to the people around him, the society, the community he lived in, whoever he met, he greeted them with Tashidele. So it was not like, these are us and they're over there and this is us. So us and them, that divide in his mind no longer existed. And everyone became his friends. So he became very happy as a result of that. So the people who previous were not his friends, now they became his friends. And so there was like a mutual kind of liking of one another. And in the end, he was much happier than he was before.
Tati chidi chane tati ina ta chamse di completo tango di chamse completo tae gi chido ta samlo khande ji gi thone ina chamse completo tango res.
So now with regard to how to increase one's love and compassion. So having understood the need, the benefits of such, now how can we increase one's love, our love and compassion?
Tatila Kasure so the Namji Jamunamshi Sue Dirva, or the summer me, but Chiguares, Chiguki to shade the future towers. And take on that and they were to Chigua to limit to Chiguares. That's some of the diet is Uda.
So with regard to the way to improve one's love and one's compassion, the way to improve that, well, it is as His Holiness usually says. His Holiness usually explains that we need to strengthen the notion that we're all the same, that ourselves and others, we're all the same in the sense that we all want to be happy and we do not want to experience suffering.
심지 다 참말로 파면 두시다 빈자기 두시들이 샤에 숨겨 다들 겨와마 치던 전에 기시해나도 니마 파마치 누르세요 기제 시에셔라 겨와마 치기제 마시네 파면 두시 샤야지 용구 있어 백이 섬 당다지 다 숙친부터 팽겨임에 관시 때스도 팽겨
So not with regard to having, so with regard to a little benefit, having received some benefit from others. So we can generate the notion that others are like our parents. There's a sense we can cultivate the notion in our mind that sentient beings are like our that other sentient beings are like our parents or like our relative from the point of view of receiving benefit from them. Now, with regard to past lives, taking into consideration past life, then that is easier to think that all sentient beings have been at some point our relatives, have been our parents. But even from the point of view of just this lifetime, it is possible to generate the notion of regarding others like one's parents or one's relatives, even though that may not be as strong as with regard to thinking of others as one's parents, etc., from a previous life's point of view.
이 바게 가서 이 안에 다 속이 내가 유비 다 나서 포팅했는데 뭐지 됐었지 근데 내가 지었어요. 에데라다 암지 로싱시 같이 가서 담에 주칭이 다들 초보들 열어. 다 뭐요래 엔티나로네 다 아자치 다 나자다 들이 캠페 아니 룽사버체 암지 대선을 룽대 시시땅 어딘지 제대로 다 디카드들이 암지 삼아 다 교교교를 저게 말아보지 그게 틀림이지 에디네 포사지 친지 아니 디 제대로네 아니 암지 제대로 아니 시시시 제 땅가 아니 포사디 기문세지 진 동마다 다지게 말아보지 그럼 정말 시시시 땅에 따라 대대이서라 대대를 찾아 알레르 차 이렇게 시행문제 제사제 말로용다 로봇이 칩팅이 컨디션 데이터스 네 기시콩이 아마 이나 제가 있어 들려와 가시기 전이다 팽이도 없다고
So then Geshe-la gave the example of a special hospital where people go to die. Those who have terminal illnesses, they go to this particular hospice to die. And there are a lot of doctors in this particular hospice taking care of the patients. And in one particular case, there was one lady who was extremely angry. So whenever a doctor would come to see her, she would shout around, she would scold the person and be very aggressive and very angry. And so the doctors didn't want to go to see her. One was trying to put the other person before them, like saying, "You go, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to see her." And no one really wanted to go to see her. And in one case, there was There was one case where a young man, he decided he's going to go to her no matter what she's going to say. So when he approached her, as usual, she started scolding him. She was very aggressive, and for about 20 minutes she just scolded him, shouted around, and let up all this steam. And at the very end, she kind of got calmer, and they talked very quietly, and eventually he left. So when the other doctors asked him, "How did you do this?" He said, "Oh, that was easy. I just thought she's my mother. I just thought she was my mother." So Gisela said, so therefore, you don't really need to have a sense of past lives. You don't really need to take into consideration past lives. All you can do is see this person as your mother.
다 야메나 파게 딜레 찍제나 다 코에 미지게 아마레스라 당해 아마 계치면 이만나시 코에 미지게 아마레스 부부 중중이나 소지 부부디 자지면 이만나시 부부 뒤에 미지게 부부레스야 하거든 야 디디 삼로 내나야 찍으라
Okay. Yeah. Also, in the case of like taking one person, so this one person may be the mother of another person. So, in the sense that this person is precious because even though they're not our own personal mother, they're the mother of someone else. And then, with regard to a small child. Okay, that's no problem. So the same with regard to a small child, if there's a small child, so someone will regard this small child as very precious. So in the same way, we should regard others, they are the child of another person. So in the same way, as another person would see them as precious, we should also regard them as being precious.
다 다기 조조디 어디 대화되고 동음이 되고 지발 했어야지 다 뒤에 삼로때 세부 차례에 된다는 14호진의 삼담으로 디지디 전에 아니 수수다 안데슬라버다 파조다 닝지고메 나 파조 동에 나라에 디삼로 땅니 너스디 삼로 땅니 수수 강에 디지 채바이나 아니 같이 차이래 요 같이 스웨토그레 말에 아니 디나시 코에 마다 지발했어 동네 미스고 동네 충분히 미스고 지발했어야 합니다 양 소소다 파게 가르스고레 강에 체드디 로봇체미지라나 소소 간데가 그래 소소 가지 팽기래 디나시 아니 강에 체딩이 콜에 로봇체미지 라바이나 로봇체바이나 콜에 시부지 편도 요구래 근데 콜에 가고 요구래 지발했어야 하고 어 디디지 짬 디체바이나 데세르 두가
So then, in particular, with regard to mainly reflecting on the fact that others want to be happy and they don't want to suffer, to reflect on that fact, it needs to become clear to us, and we need to reflect upon that in detail. We need to think about this in great detail. So, for example, if there's another person who experiences a lot of suffering, who suffers from a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties, so to think, how would that be if I were to suffer like that? If I were to experience all these problems and difficulties, how would I be able to bear those? And this other person, they're just like me. They're unable to bear even the smallest problem. And still, they have to experience all these problems, all these difficulties. So to become aware of the predicament of the other person, how they would feel, etc. How I would feel if I were in their shoes. And then likewise also from the point of view of benefiting that person. So how it would be if how would I like it if when I have problems, when I have difficulties, how I would be happy, how happy I would be if someone benefited me, if someone helped me. So if there was a friend who were there for me, who would assist me. So how happy would I be if in my case, and then directed towards the other person to understand that if they receive help, they would be so happy, just as I would. So this is what we should reflect on. This is what we should contemplate. Or if one were sick, if one experienced problems and disease, like physical disease, and if someone were to say, well, instead of getting rid of the disease, just leave it, never mind, don't care for that disease. So if one were to suggest, well, just ignore it, how would you react? So one will not agree to just leave it and to just ignore one's problem. Why? Because in the future one's disease may get worse and one may experience greater problems. But therefore, in the same way, when others experience problems, when others are sick, we should not ignore that, because if we do, then in the future the problem, the disease will get worse and they will suffer even more. So it's exactly the same, whether with regard to ourselves or the other. If we were to say that, how would you respond? So with regard to your mental attitude, with regard to your how would you react, like mentally? What would be your response if someone were to say that to you? So either you would agree that it's the same whether I'm sick or someone else is sick, in the same way as I have to do something in my own case, I have to help the others. And if you don't agree, you need to bring forth some argument why you don't agree. Or alternatively, if we were to say to give 1,000 rupees to another person, so why not just give 1,000 rupees to another person? Or why not 10,000 rupees? what happens to you mentally? What happens to your mind when you're supposed to give 10,000 rupees to another person? So usually we cannot really do that. We cannot give someone that amount of money. But what happens if someone were to say, just give it to that person? What happens to you? What kind of feeling arises? So we're probably all the same. We're all the same. We have the same reaction. So if someone were to tell you, well, what's the point? What's the problem? Just giving that much money to another person. How would you react?
Yeah.
I would say, why don't you be generous?
쭉 가르치는 때문에. 가르치는 때고 쭉 가르치는 때문에.
아니 파셔되게 쭉 가르치는 때문에.
So they would also say, why don't you give it to me? So they were reacting the same way.
디 같이 세월 기제인기만 되게 내기 마제다 제대로서 좀 인식을 해. 얘다. 당연히 저 차려라. 균형도 되게 제게 요말한다. 얘도 거쳐 때으로 왔어요.
So in this case, it's probably not so much to do with an absence of kind-heartedness or love, but there's rather a sense of arrogance, like, well, first the other person has to give it to me. So we don't really give it to one another simultaneously. We wait for the other person to give something first before we pay them back, before we also give something to them.
나타나 가수가 저던 미교부터 저기 시거라. 교부터 저라. 신다도 저때 준세 먹고 연구를 봐. 저 교부터 저라 디테일도 제도입니다. 아니 삼라도 가리게 까대고.
So in this case here, though, to kind of so let's take the case of a poor person who doesn't have anything to give in return. So in the case of a poor person, so why do we not? What happens in our mind? What kind of feeling arises that hinders us from giving to that person? What is it in our mind that makes it disables or doesn't make it possible for us to give to that person?
다 마저웨이나 삼로 갈래 되스나 고문추 때나 고문추 연애면에 막 견케요 말아 대토고도 동자티 인제 때게지시나 디테나 막 거기 같이 오래 막 가르치다 오래 남자 딜레기도 하세요.
So in the case of 10 rupees, well, there's no problem, whether I have it or I don't. Well, there's no problem. I can give it to that person. But if it's more than that, like 1,000 rupees or even more, then what am I going to do if I need it? So the thought that arises with regard to Gela would say what happens to him would be to think, what am I going to do if I need the money? What am I going to do? Probably similar for all of us.
그래서 딜레디 전에 다디 디워딩 건속이 다 가지고 있는 레디거라. 디체나 아니 뭐 같이 오래. 야 미치를 로봇 제거는 로봇 제가 제도 고도돼. 로봇 제가 저는 말까지 책도 왔어. 디견양 디섬다 디가데도. 다 원해지는 디 도초기 지부지겨라. 다디 마테나 뭐 고디 가르치다. 가서 제외이나 나로. 제외이나 뭐 고디 가르치다 뭐이나. 마테나 코고디 아니 코 간디스피시다 뭐. 리버디 큐니 사무 땅이와 말아. 아니 로봇 제가 저나 뭐 강에 책도 왔어. 로봇 마제나 코 강에 책도 세디 리고 말아. 제 정보입니다. 나들 시부지 개침부지 자침부지 신기다 자침부 마지가 디기 심팅의 유에 디게 엔티 저와디도 슬레이모다 섬도.
So in that case, that question arises, if I give that money to this person, what am I going to do if I need money? Or if I help that person, what happens if I have a problem? What if I have a problem by helping this person? So these thoughts, these kind of emotional response, so these responses, they prevent us, they hinder us from helping the other person. But actually, what we should think, instead of thinking, oh, why should I give this to this person? What am I going to do if I don't have the money? Or if I need the money? We should reverse this and think instead, well, what is the other person going to do if we don't give them the money? Or likewise, when someone requires our help, and instead of helping them, we worry that we'll have a problem by helping this person, we should reverse it and think instead, well, what happens? What will be the problem if I don't help the other person? So actually the way we go about it is not fair. Fair in the sense that we consider ourselves to be more precious and others to be less precious. So this is not a fair attitude.
제산다 디기 자와디 미신다 디기 딜레 소소다 나디 자치와 개치와 지지 아니 디기 더 요되기도.
So the root reason for why we react like that is because we consider ourselves to be more precious than the other person.
다 딜라 아니 계지 시험도 다 딜라 다 유다 유진이 기와 시월 디지 딩인디 셰바디 지고르와 지사디 나다 신디 유체 아니 셰바디기 아니 디게 충마 지신다리 아니 나디 게치오 지 도스레 다 유다 유진이 알링이라 이어지 체월.
So with respect to the explanation here why this is the case, we need to distinguish between the object and the object possessor. Between the object, which is the self and others, and the object possessor, which is the awareness that thinks I and others. So the awareness is the object possessor, the object is I and others. So these two need to be distinguished.
다 딜라 뒤전에 아니 간데슬라보다 다 미니에나 라 어쩌면 파타데 미니에나 미다 니마세야지다 다와세야지 미니에나 니마기 럭이 차단디 가리어데 다와레 개치오 시거 와 아니 다와기 럭이 차단 가르레 다와레 개충어 시거 니마디 긴두로 다 런니디 지기 다와레 개충어 레스 다 너디 칸에 나바이나 다 지기 다와레 개충어 레라고 하지 지기 다와레 개치어 레라고 다 개치어 레 충어 레 뭐였는지라 디티가 들려요 미니어와 미니 니마라야지다 네 미니 니마레 디 다와레 다 거기 세배기 차다 거기 섬로기 차단 걸래 아니 디 다와기 섬로 차다라 디 니마레 개쳐와레 거기 섬로치기 거기 섬로디기 차단 걸래 디 니마레 개충와레 제나 다디 니마레 개쳐와레 순노르 다디 지기 니마레 개쳐와레 시고 지기 니마레 개충와레라고 네가 이마 시그마 아니 갈래 문에니.
So to clarify this point, so how to make this easier, so how we look at others from the point of view of looking at others. So let's take two people. One person is called Nima, and the other is called Dawa. So two people. And so Nima would say, I'm more precious than Dawa. I'm more precious than Dawa. And Dawa would say, Nima is less precious than me. Right? So both have these different attitudes. One saying one is precious, one is less precious. So what is it in actuality? Who is more precious? Is Dawa more precious or is Nima more precious? Who of those two needs to be considered to be more important or more precious?
제자다 루이 철줄기 토네 기제 셰바이나 그 루이 철줄 기제 셰바이나 디게 셔와레 콜레 게 셔와레 그 루이 철줄 기제 셰바이나니 디딜리 게 충와레 다 루이 철줄이 파샤니 루이 철줄 기제 메바지 코라니 수게 셔와레스나 기치준 직부 직견 차데르다 시제찬을 나오르딜레 내가 또 연구로 내가 코강에 테데 베는 내가 지라 콜라사야메 콜라사야유나 수제 사야지 때문에 콜레테오로 고게 지기로 디 내가 비게저로 시제찬에 군주님 기치준 직부 직견하다.
So this is merely from the point of view of appearance to the mind. The way Dawa, for example, appears to his own mind. To Dawa's mind, Dawa is more precious. Dawa is more important. But to his own mind, Nima at the same time is less important, less precious. But basically, without having this appearing to the mind, so Nima to Nima, Dawa appears as less precious. So without considering this appearance to the mind, if that didn't take place, the sense how these two beings appear to the different awarenesses, if that didn't take place, they'd be equally important in the general sense. Of course, temporarily, it may be the case that one becomes more precious than the other. Let's say in the case that Nima doesn't get any food, but Dawa has enough food. Then in that case, Nima is more important from the point of view of having to give him food, whereas the other person is satisfied, it's not necessary. So in that circumstance, it may be possible to say that one is more important in that particular case. However, in general, we can say both are equally important.
디 파절을 자네 디 하고 차비는 신이 소소를 자로라 다 니마제 안마제로 로 디기 차츠라 엔 디게 쳐와래 로 디기 차츠라 디게 총와 딜리 니마를 게 총와래 달로 차즈니 파샤나 니마다 많이 수게 쳐와래 시제 차네 게 주니 지부 지경을 했어요.
So now we need to apply the same idea. Now we need to apply the same idea to ourselves. The same principle we need to apply to ourselves. So there's ourself and there's Nima. From the point of view of Nima, we are less important. From our own point of view, we are more important. So then again, if we just leave aside the way importance appears to the different types of awareness, just leaving that aside, in general, we're equally important. Myself and Nima are equally important, or we ourselves and Nima are equally important.
Dear Ma Lavada, me, di Lavada, just give a UC, Ma say the Hajangi, Jedi, shoot the Lemula, Midi, the Nara. That she's a challenge, Midi, the Midi Chibari, Midi, the Midi Chibari, Midi, the Midi. She's a challenge, Chibuchigales. Two the idea to do that women, so the parts here to the Bessans in Fagisha, to the Bessan rest. That to the Bessan, Korangi Semna, Kokechi or Sigur, Quesemna, Kokechi or Sigil. Semi the Pashana, Midida to the Bessan, Chibuchigale, Midida to the Bessan, Chibuchigale, Dida in Chibuchigales. And she need the Chibures, some Kotsana. Ting out of us, Tamada Chibuchigare, Chijina, some Kotangi for the death. You see.
So now, from the point of view of myself, so there's a sense that I am here and that person. So differentiate I here and then that person. And there's more of a cherishing. One cherishes the self. The I is cherished more. But from the point of view in general being the same, so we need to make this clear to us now, the fact that we're equally important. Ourselves are equally important than the other and vice versa. So we are equally important with regard to everyone else. And if that is difficult, if it's difficult to cultivate that notion that we're equally important, what would be beneficial? So to take Gentuk Tempesan, so in the case of Geshe-la, he suggests that instead of thinking I is here, Geshe-la would put Geshe-la next to him. So this is Geshe-la over there, and then there's another person. So by doing that, the sense of I, now the I is over there, and then you compare the I, Geshe-la, to another person. Then the distance is it's the same. There's the same sense of a distance over there. So, and this person is equally important. And this person is also equally important, and they're all equally important. So in other words, it may be beneficial to have a sense that the I is also further removed. It's over there. And this person is just as equally important, and that person is equally important. And so in that sense, eventually one goes, yes, and that self is me here. So it may be easier to generate this strong sense that others and myself are equally important by distancing to generate a kind of distance to oneself. by distancing oneself to the self and kind of put it further away from oneself.
지산다 먼저 참아 찍바래 세기 찍다가라라 다 찍당 찍루디야 페스 띵서버서로 되는 걸로 다 단단 다기는 대화되고 찍고 등음이 되고 찍바시 다 디가는 양조 시제찬에 계시준 찍바 자치준 찍바 다 슈체로 들어와.
So when we use those words, we are all the same. We are all the same. We're equal. We're all the same. So we can take it to different levels. There are different levels. We can go to deeper levels with regard to understanding those words. So from the point of view of wishing to be happy and not wishing to experience suffering, we are all the same. And then from the point of view of being equally precious, being equally important. So again, we are the same. We're equal, or we're the same from the point of view of preciousness and from the point of view of importance.
대대진이 시제찬에 계치준 찍바이나 가리체니다 미디 찬자체 버침바 예센디나 다스스스스 여러 셰바디기 미망고 예비나로니 가리체니 디짱짱라야 제버치니 아니 자치 계치무 지거 자치주 지거.
If it is the case that we're all equally important, that we're equally precious, equally important, why is it that it's this person, oneself, the person that oneself is, so this I is considered to be more precious? Why, with regard to one's awareness, why does that one's own awareness consider oneself to be more precious? Why is it always the case that with regard to oneself and others, one regards oneself as more precious, as more important?
Tadila ane tingamares di subodi nge subore di kwegi subore nge subumare di ngegi semre di kwegi semre nge semares samlo digi ane yewa cheshagdo kechijun leunga.
So the reason for differentiating, for distinguishing between ourselves and others is there's a sense, this is the I, and this is over there, this person is not the I, this is not me. And then this is my body, Geshe-la pointing at his own body. This is my body, this is his body, pointing at the other person. So the other person's body is not my body. Then again, Geshe-la pointed at himself. This is my mind. And then pointing at the other person, this is his mind. His mind is not my mind. So it's because of distinguishing between I and him and mine and his that we consider one to be more precious or more important than the other.
저기 다 쇼가네 제네니 같이 지기도 내가 제나지어라. 다 맞아보이는데 쇼게 야라 트위저 트마자는 대부분도 장마민도스 장마 자기민도 아니가 소자모 통배야가 수부디 지기민도 매사원은 매마사는 만나기도 근데 지금 내기치도 지기도 이만인가 다 신다도스 장마 남매 당샤 다 남매 당마에 오즈레디 아니 소소디기도 토나 아니 말디 소소 교라에다 소소 교사에다 토나 신다도 내기야라 디지 패티컬까지 디차마로 디체는 말디요 디체는 말디 고고도 내기치도 제대기도 아니 신다파시는 밀러 로봇치가 저러와 있네 야 뒤에 그래 디체는 야 제만만 수야오지 그래 디체는 말 믿으세요 하고 가오지 그래 타나 디체는 마스노 사이 그래 지금 내기치도 제형보다.
So if we think about this, from morning to evening, we start from morning to evening, how do we engage? What kind of actions do we engage in? So Geshe-la took himself as the example. So Geshe-la said, in the morning he gets up, then he washes. Well, he washes because otherwise he doesn't feel well. There's no feeling of feeling clean. So this the sense of I don't feel clean. Then there's some tea. One drinks some tea. If one doesn't drink tea, again, one doesn't feel well. One doesn't wake up really. And then one takes medicine. Well, why do we take? Because then I will feel well. So in that sense, everything we do is for ourselves. We ignore others. Basically, we ignore others. We only think of our own benefit. Everything is done for our own benefit. And if we just ignore others, that'd be not too bad. But what we do, if we have some kind of benefit, if we reap some kind of benefit, we even go as far as harming others in order to bring forth some benefit, in order to experience some benefit for ourselves. And then we do this activity, we engage in that activity, in all sorts of different actions. We engage in those different actions if it benefits ourselves. So even positive types of activities, even helping others, benefiting others. So we do this because then others will like us. Others will be pleased. Others will like us. They will become our friends. So we engage in those different activities if we see some kind of benefit. And if ultimately it is in order to accumulate merit. So for the sake of accumulating merit, we engage in those activities. So basically we only do it if there's some personal benefit for ourselves.
내기치도 다 지거 다들 가서 설거도 내기치도 지기도 다 딜라 아니 나랑기 셰버디기 다나 딩가레스네 아니 말에 아버지 기절로다 참아기 다 되다라 간지 차되어레스나 베나다 녜는 딘지 지나로로 차되어 요시 다디 부도마이나 지버다 부도스의 심지 지부도스이네 지 제대에 디제는 말마 나지 지도 지거 다디 부도마 지기 뭐차샤나 부도마 동자 먹고 예비 나로네 아니 디기 발 구조자 칼라체가 저 디제에 참아 나스는 매기 치료 집이 기절해 그런 게 셰버디 근데 먼저 따나 가래 다 같이 그 셰버디 부도마 먹고 예비 나로네 부도마 디지 뿌이치도 다 거의 세차선 깨고 디나시 미션다지를 따나 그런 게다 나스는 지성도디 코거래 먼저 따되나 미디 저불링 미먹고 예비 나로네 미치라 직 쏟아볼 때지 아니 디짱짱기 치료 다 갈래져도 차고 This part in the town, that day, today was asking me, that the Bolin Mima Wivan Chigri. Dying in Shebagi, Chik Choke, any just some Kodaji, that Missy Chaza for a meeting to Kalida, Michigi Chidu, Tilla and Glass in Mintache, and teaching me to Kalida, the other than the chatted.
So therefore, it's all for myself. Everything we do is for the I. So this is the feeling that arises in our mental continuum. I'm doing this for myself. This is my consciousness. So the consciousness, there's a sense, so one's own consciousness thinking, this is me. I help others for myself, etc. So whatever I do for myself. So to take an example, to give an example, so from it's maybe easier for it, maybe easier to understand this, or it's easier for it to arise to one's own awareness if one takes an ant, just one ant or a tiny bird. So all of the different eyes, like all the different senses of eye with regard to these different ants, they're all similar. So take the ant, let's take the example of the ant. There are thousands of different ants. And of those thousands of different ants, there's one ant thinking, I. So when we look at this particular ant, there's a sense of, well, there's just one. There's so many other ants. So what's the point of just thinking I with regard to this particular ant when there's so many thousands of other ants, thousands of other ants? And then likewise with regard to all the human beings in this world, all the people in this world, just all the time thinking, oh, just I'm doing this for myself, I'm doing this for myself, etc. So in this lifetime, only working for one's own benefit. So that all the different people in this world, when there's one person just considering I. And then Geshe-la says to take it to oneself. So in the case of Geshe-la, taking it to Gentubden Pesang in his own case. So there's a sense of I, just me, just working for one's own benefit. So basically one spends one's entire life just working for this one person. One's entire life is spent working for the benefit or working for this particular I.
자기 최바지 거기 놔서 지디 비치시 당문들라이다 지치는 삼바들이 다대기라 배나 민디다가 다다시 땡문데 그대에서 저도도 그대에서 저래서 뒤다바다 가저래서 어디다가 믿어서 지비시 되게 믿어서
There's one practitioner, one Indian Dharma practitioner. Geshe-la says he doesn't remember his name, but he never uses the word I. He never uses the word I. So maybe it's because of that, his understanding of this overemphasis of the I, because of that understanding. So it would be like saying Geshe-tupten Pesang wants to go. Geshe-tupten Pesang, like referring to oneself by referring to oneself with one's own name. So Geshe-la referring to himself as saying, I want to walk, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want to do this, that, and the other.
제가 디요치에 삼로디 디가레 디크기 마마레스 요치에 디토네 중대버디다 세부차게.
So this explanation, therefore, it indicates that we differentiate, we distinguish between I and others. We distinguish, we make this, we separate I and others.
다 딜레 다기는 신진이 삼로타나 다 로디기 미디 마레스 라고르타 아니 미디 마마레스 라고르시다지라와 양 파조기 로디기 미디 마레라고 띵가 마레라고 다 원에 갈래다 라 달로디 상마로기 로디 로다 뭐주 두주도 디 상마로기 띵가 마레라고 미디 다 델리 웨딩이 로디기 다디 띵가레라고 왔다 다디 니가 인식 말아 마이 니가 인식 말아 다디 갈래다 원에 갈래
So likewise with regard to an awareness thinking, this is I and this is not I. With regard to another person, this is not I. So with regard to oneself, one's own awareness thinks I, but with regard to another person, one thinks this is not I. So here likewise with regard to Genna, so Genna himself from his point of view, it would be I, this is I. But then everyone in this room, from the point of view of everyone in this room, everyone would go I. So of the 50, 60 different people, 50 to 60 different people in this room, everyone has the awareness I. So then from the point of view of them, each and everyone's awareness in this room, you're thinking I, Geshe-la is not I. But from Geshe-la's perspective, when he looks at himself, his consciousness, his awareness thinks I. So what is it? Is Geshe-la I or is Geshe-la not I? Which of the two is it? From the perspective of everyone else, Geshe-la is not I, but from his own perspective, he is. So therefore, the question would be, is he I or not?
다 루이 철술기 기지 쉐바이나 긴두게 요마다 루디기 철술기 토는 기지 쉐바이나 딩아레 디게 딩아마레 루디기 철술기 대기 기지 철술기 기지 쉐바이나 디게 딩아레 딩아마레 대디리 긴두게 요마레 남지 어저 다라 비지친 저디고를 루치지기 토네.
So from the point of view of how something appears to the mind, there is no contradiction. So from the point of view of a particular awareness, this is I, and someone else is not I. From a point of view of another awareness, that which was previously I is no longer I, but something else is I. So from the point of view of appearance, there's no contradiction with regard to how something appears to the mind. It is permissible. It is possible to say this is I and this is not I from the perspective of a specific awareness. There's no contradiction.
아니 니마다 저 다와니 다 거기 럭이 기지 쉐바이나 띵가레스 그 럭이 기지 쉐바이나 띵가 마레라고 달레 체스니 디파 레 체스 디파 유 레 체스 기제 디파 샤니 그중에 수 마레라나 징가레 징가 마레스 요 체제 요 말다 지부지가 시제차.
So the same is true with regard to the two people, one called Nima, of one person. So let's say Nima, from the point of view of Nima. So Nima would say, this is I, and Dawa is not I. From the point of view of Dawa, Dawa is the I, and Nima is not the I. But this is only from the point of view of appearance. Those two individuals, their particular awarenesses, to them I and not I appears. But if you were to leave aside that appearance, if you were able to not, just get rid of that appearance to awareness, then there would be you couldn't say this is I and this is not I. This idea of I and not being I, in a general sense, just wouldn't be there. If you were to get rid of the appearance to awareness. So therefore, by leaving aside the way something appears to the mind, there would not be a difference between this is I, this is not I. There would not be a difference from the point of view of this is my body and this is not my body. So in general, it wouldn't be any of those. It wouldn't be my body or not my body. In general, there would be none of those. If one were to leave aside the way this appears to the awareness, the way things appear to the mind. So therefore saying that this is I and this is not I, this is mine and this is not mine, since all this comes this is just a mere arising to the mind, this is merely due to the way this appears to the mind. If there were not that appearance to the mind, that arising to the mind, then in general that distinction wouldn't exist, the distinction between I and not I. That distinction wouldn't be there. And if that is not there, if that distinction is not there, there would also be no distinction from the point of view one being precious and one not being precious, or one being important and the other one not. So therefore, if in general there's no distinction, there's no difference in terms of preciousness with regard to one person and another person, well then, if another person needs 100 rupees, one should give 50 rupees. It makes sense to give 50 rupees if one is equally important and the other person needs money. If the other person needs 100 rupees, one should give 50.
Tangela aleti tanda tishedi das misus jibriyungre lolachi babaji korvata lola babginji ina ani shineti ya samtayundu di komti di tendu jibarisha se samlo shuchir chero chore shuchir chero tone kajin re dona komti kajin te na ani shugula kage pena michile robache da du namjin komshi di 다 유쇼세 레바이네 직벌해봐 서로도 코어다 남산에 제토비에치 차로
So then, initially, what one needs to engage in first is to specify this kind of understanding here, in the sense that it needs to really set hold in one's mind. It just really needs to set hold in one's mind in the sense that one really understands that point, and then again and again familiarizes with this idea, such that that one generates such strong familiarity to a degree such that when one sees another person, there's initially there may be a bit of hesitance to help, and then right away, no, they're the same. The very strong kind of innate or natural sense, they're just as me. This person is just as me. They're the same. So one needs to take it to such a degree that there's a natural sense, they're just the same.
nga la du ta ke chimbo cha zhe de samle na lo la ta di karsa kande re ta di jongwe mu chi gi ta kang jun di chi lu sung ba ta ma de shin da chi gi chi lu sung nga la du yu de cha ge do as di sung da shine ni ge gi sha ni gi no ni gi nye ni gi ta ji nga di ki le sha ne ta yu la du ki se de 인보도 차르고 맞아 직비지지 대화를 다 이렇게 지기 다르게 대화디 인보기 그래서 대화디 차르디 다 자치셔디 차르로도 신다도 뒤에나 차르로다 차르디 되지 되고 되게는 개친구 차야지.
So here when we say my body, when we say I, when there's the sense of importance, so one way to think about this, so this is something His Holiness the Dalai Lama usually explains, although in a different context, but His Holiness usually explains this, gives this explanation with regard to the I. There is a sense that the I is in the middle. The I is in the middle, and then everything else, so then there's that which is to the east, then there's that which is to the west, then there are those who are one's enemies, then there are those who are one's friend. So one is the middle of everything. One is in the middle. One is the essence of everything. One is the center of everything. So if something is the center, so the idea here of being in the center, being the center of everything, holds the idea of being more precious, being more important. And everything else is merely secondary. So oneself being in the middle, oneself being in the center, everything in relation to that becomes secondary.
딜러 기제 시다 된다 잡을 용서를 신다진의 신나 와 추조제 아니 신의들 파죠 다디 예 상원을 저는 위다다 자주라 파죠 추조다 그래서 위자 같이 파죠들이 다른 뭐지 자리다 추조들이 예의 나머지 참데 나디 예쇼 내용도 다들 차바다다 내려와라 맞들라.
So then there's another explanation that is quite similar. When we refer to ourselves, there's a sense of here. The I is here. And then the other person is there. And that is true for everyone who surrounds oneself. So the person to the right is there. To the person to the left is there. The person above is there. The one below is there. So oneself ends up being in the center, being here, being the closest to oneself in this case. And therefore it makes sense to generate attachment, because this is the closest. So it attaches to that which is the closest, the I, which is in the center, which is the closest to oneself.
달리 차주 디레디 딜리 차주자마도 모빈이 셀라 아니 다다기다바다시 인투데베사디 예와다 이 진짜 참아르가 근데 나도 말아 일로라 디차거.
So this is from the point of view of appearance. This is from the point of view of arising to the mind, that appearance arising to the mind. But in actuality, it's not really there. So as said before, Gintuk Dempesang kind of being closer to himself and everyone else being further away. This is only from the point of view of appearance to the awareness.
Tadi pedi jayondi, ta pejana pari churi jayo tadi dila jayon tido, di pachore, di chujore, di tanyo do, di taringa do, ta tongu do, jengi do.
So usually in the scriptures you find the example of the mountain over there and the mountain over here. So likewise here you can take the example of the two pens. So you have two pens. One pen's held closer to himself. So this he said is the pen here. And then he pointed at the other one he put in front of himself on the table. He said this is the pen there. So it's true to say, or is it true, is this really here, the pen here, and the other one is the pen there? Or is it just from the point of view of appearance to the mind? Is this closer and the other one is further away? The one that he's holding in his hands, is that closer, and the other one that's on the table, is that further away? From your perspective is the opposite. So the one that is on the table is near to you. The one that Geshe-la is holding in his hands is further away from you. So the fact that the pencil Geshe-la is holding in his hand is closer and the one on the table is further away, that is from the perspective of his own awareness. But when it's the other way around, that the pen on the table is closer and the other one further away, that is from the perspective of the people on the other side. So if you were to leave aside the appearance to the awareness, it wouldn't be closer or nearer. This distinction would not exist. So likewise, if one were to leave aside the way things appear to the mind, again, the sense of this is the person here, the I that is closer, and this is that person that is further away, again, that distinction wouldn't exist.
다 딘디기 여와체 매번 문에이나 다 미차마 다 디나시 시제찬 디니를 야르케 버미도 천전의 직벌 지중지 공시중 직벌 야르케 제요 말 자치중다 계치중 제요 말 디나시 미차마 되고 직경을 했어요. 그 시제찬
So that distinction in reality doesn't exist. That distinction is not there in reality. Well, in the same way, now if you take the two pens the Gena just held up, they're actually the same. There's no difference. They're the same color. They have the same value. So one is not more precious than the others. So likewise, this is true with regard to all sentient beings in general. All beings are the same in the sense that there's no distinction with regard to their value, in the sense that one is more valuable or more important than the other.
다디니 지베지야인마다 맞아 삼에 참에 두고도 다 이내 지베지야 인기 다디 미셔다지도 때다 다디 거랑 인스타고 저 다게 지금 차사다 다디 자체와 차사 다디 딜네 디체나 다 빈시 있는 테스트하래 모두 제가 신다지 있는 다디를 견셔나 마세버 지부요 말에 딜 디체나 나 폰도사 그래 띵에 다고 잡으래 디 다고 잡고요 말에 차는 차 가르치는 제 미키는 키 폰도사과에 요 말에 셈마지버 요 말. 다띵 거랑 생긴 얘기 세 삼로디기 쇠샤마도 오늘도 지부지냐래도 디나시 미디나나 마심데 지고 아래 로디 아니 미디 숨겹 지고 아래 다 미디를 디체는 폰도사고 아래 미신다 딜라 콘 디체는 나 폰도사고 아마 마셈마지버 요 말에 콜라다고 자고 아마래 다 디센디 쇠샤마도 지냐 차들다 신다 상마.
So that these two pencils are the same from the point of view of color, value, etc. We can perceive this with a valid cognizer, with valid cognition, we can see this. However, if one of those pens I were to give to another person, I were to keep one, then the importance of one over the other becomes quite different. So the one that I keep, that is valuable. So with regard to the other, if it breaks down, if it's stolen, I don't care. But with regard to the one that is mine, if someone breaks it, if someone takes it, I would get angry. So therefore there's a difference now that from the point of view of being mine, therefore this is more important than the other. And the same is true with regard to the body, one's own body. If one's own personal body is sick, I get unhappy. I need to protect this body. If someone tries to harm this body, I get angry, and so forth. Whereas with regard to another person, well, they harm the other person or not, I don't care. So in that sense, in actuality, this only comes from one's own awareness, from one's own way of thinking. This is just a matter of one's own way of thinking. In actuality, there is no difference. So if one leaves aside that way in which this appears to the mind, the motive appears to the mind, if one were to leave that aside, one has to say that all are the same, that there is no difference between oneself and others, and the importance of oneself and others.
that condition on this and around the shingi yawa che and a shin kichi shuzi de lui chasul zamki kijares shizechan yoma res kijit nishigur in a deal of this and ramani yoma res ege tanju tawa chamadikana bagoeke sumar kurabaji on the shage that the as a Ladugi Cindy Jachin Chuji Zebatina Lola, the Tamitamuka Togoeki Yoma is Ladugi Cindy Jachin Chuji. And the Tamitamuka about Togoeki Yoma is Rabachi Tony, some Donas Yoris and the Sundo.
So saying that, so the sense that there's no real distinction between I and others, or a distinction from the point of view of one being more precious and the other less precious, if one were to leave aside just the mode of appearance of the mind, just leaving aside the appearance of the mind, that in general that there's no difference. This does not necessarily come down to the understanding that phenomena do not exist from their own side. This is just a coarse kind of explanation. This is merely coarse, that understanding. One does not need to have an understanding or comprehension of the lack of objective existence. And this is also something, this is explained by Jamyang Chudin, who composed a commentary that is called Notes on Lapdu, on a specific text called Lapdu, so Notes on Lapdu by Jamyang Chudin. So he also explained this is just merely a coarse understanding. This is merely a coarse understanding one gains by going through the reflections as Geshe-la just explained.
The Pechimuni said, Aresana. The Kasai Tashanigi and Hindu Kashigi, that's how much Tachibus in someone kept there received. And Dilana, the legend out of Toshara was it some chigra, that the chigra, learning with that chair about the tree, that chick chadrona, the legend that she was in Chadro.
So that this is only really rough with regard to an understanding of the self. This becomes obvious, or this is true when taking into consideration the self of person, which is asserted by the Hindus. But at the same time, some Hindu followers, they assert that there is a self that pervades all selves. So there's a self that pervades all selves, so that there's much more of a sense that we're all the same. Because if there's a self that pervades all selves, then we're all the same.
Tata Redi Kijiva in a Mula Mota de Vitachi Yore Tila, a Telefumula Mota de Vitachi Yore, a Tatini Dilla, and Lugi 라나 신 파조 수저 예와 니링 체와마도 시세체는 예와미도 와서 기제도 시초도 뭐는 못하게 다 유에버 시작이 또네 기제 신에 시초에지도 와디.
So, with regard to all the different types of self, or the different eyes, the different self, well, even if there were a self that exists as separate from the aggregates, if there were to exist such an I, but still the argument or the reasoning that was presented earlier would still work from the point of view of this I over here, that I over there. This is not different because it's only from the point of view of appearance to the mind that there's a sense that there's an I here and an I there. In actuality, they're not really different, of a different nature, those different I's, even though these selves exist as being a separate entity from the aggregates. If they were to exist in that way.
다 같이 되게 다다 신이 직벌에서 다다 신념벌에서 공유리 도스 공부에서.
So in order to understand that the self and others are equal, this is the way to meditate on this. This is the way to contemplate or familiarize oneself with the idea of others and self being equal.
지금 다와세 수수는 중기 다단의 교호 저거도 뭐 bomba를 지니 다와래요 말. 대신 중기 다와 규진도 뭐 처바된 기업에 대신 제와선지 다 메저를 자체 뒤규진 간절 소원이 기도 기면도 좀뭐 보지를 뒤치셔와 있는 내가 뒤든 요르코베 게메네 두 상당셔와 있는 저의 상당나 거라 한다 가인의 참아 이런 기분들이 기버려셔 세지 섬는 걸로 치게 용해지 다단다디에 되는 직관에서 군제 그 빼면 그 라나신 시세전의 직관에서 뭐 뒤치는데 아니 고민덕이 아니 제외심 거라나 다 직관에 세 섬로 되죠 내용이 디네는 이제 다 잡게 내라고 차고
So with regard to a view, a specific view, that needs to be developed slowly, step by step. That kind of view, one needs to understand and then develop this view step by step. This is similar and with regard to many different instances. So this is similar to generating or cultivating a view that understands interdependence from the point of view or dependent arising from the point of view of causes. So one takes this phenomenon. This has arisen from a collection of different causes. This has arisen from the collection of different causes. So one takes to mind all sorts of different phenomena and considers the fact that they have also arisen in dependence on a collection of different causes. So in that sense, one brings it closer. This situation one brings closer to the mind. When there's an actual sense that when one perceives a phenomenon, right away, oh, this phenomenon also has arisen from causes and conditions. It arises naturally by way of having gone through this kind of reflection with regard to all sorts of different phenomena. So in a similar fashion, here one needs to do this with regard to oneself and others. There are all these different reasons that are presented, and by familiarizing oneself with these different reasons, at some point that there's a natural sense of kind-heartedness. There's a sense of, from the point of view of preciousness, we're all the same. And then kind-heartedness, love and compassion can then naturally arise from that understanding.
되게 자와저 제외는 좀 되기까지 같이 소리세나 지들 심진 대신 다 지들 다신 심진이스 어디다 심진 같이 이만하시 마에 된대지 나 같이 이만하시 심진 된대지 세지.
So the root of that is explained by the Buddha when he says, in the same way as sentient beings, so is the I. In the same way as the I, so is sentient beings. So therefore the I and sentient beings being equal in that sense. If you have any questions, we have time for one question. Wait. Please use the microphone.
지발이나 우리 엄마가 그때 집이나 아니, 나다 겨울에 못해도 곁에 좀 집어차기로.
If all sentient beings are equal, does that mean she and His Holiness are equal?
제가 대행에 다서 희세찬에 계시준 지발했어. 단 내가 귀찮네. 내가 겨울을 묻혀 저거디. 내가 겨울 나서 집어 나와. 아니 나서 집어 나와 지라. 단 면직 못하면나. 희세찬에 계시준 지발와. 단 내가 귀찮네. 겨울을 묻혀 계셔 차려. 겨울을 묻혀 뒤쳐봐이나 미모부시 부지 편도 제도 그래. 다 소소 저거디 사와이나 미치대 배마도 와나 미니숨 편도 뒤래. 저 내가 귀찮네 겨울도. 희세찬에 지발해.
So this is actually as before. So this is the explanation Geshe-la gave before, that we're saying in general. So from a basic point of view, or in general, all sentient beings are equal. But then temporary, or from the point of view of a certain occasion, then it's possible to distinguish. So here we distinguish from a point of view of a specific occasion here, from the point of view, for example, let's say oneself is sick and His Holiness is sick. So if oneself and His Holiness being sick, well, since His Holiness benefits, and there's only one medicine, so there's only one potion of medicine, and so it has to be either it's given to His Holiness or to oneself. So in that case, one would give it to His Holiness from the point of view of His Holiness benefiting so many endless sentient beings. Whereas in one's own case, one is able to only benefit one or two people. So from that perspective, one would say the medicine is given to His Holiness. But this is not from the point of view of a general kind of basic explanation. This is from the point of view of a specific situation.
심지어 신다 자치중 기자마시바 이네 베나다 미치도 코로나 더 고모 자유버체 아니 소소도 메나 야 고모 자디 소소 비지다 보러 소소 고모 자유 파제 봐요 말어 기치중 시제자는 기치중 집어 임버 지라 내가 소소 기쳐 자들 소소 요 말어 콜 고모 자유 알아.
So similarly, let's take from the point of view of like sentient beings we consider to be equal in general. So here, if another person has 100 rupees and I don't have 100 rupees and I need those 100 rupees, there's no reason to give it to the other person. Why? Because we personally need it and the other person has 100 rupees. So here it's not from the point of view in general, from like the general basis. This is just in accordance with the situation here. It's a temporary kind of situation.
지산타 페나 사해명이 통해명이 되는 뭐 요래 다 스스로 뭐 티지니 봄치시요나 디테 오늘 전에 시세찬 집에 있는데 대샤네 지 조다지로 지거래 야 신다지라 다 스스기야 디사 베제땅 심지 뭐 시부지의 편도 지역이 미유디 숨 채시 그 디체도 딘지 섬다는데 야 내가 병원도 지냐 추베시 제디 개쳐차 차용해 드리 연구하러다 다 지금 지신도 용나 마용네 섬로 뒤땅고 왔다 미유 심지 뭐부지의 편도 중요지 샤네 아니 신의 디치도 베지 땅고 왔다.
So likewise here, for instance, someone, if you encounter people who lack food and drink, and one has like, let's say 10,000 rupees, it would make sense to give that money to the other person so they'll be able to provide themselves with food and drink. But if on the other hand, one uses that money to buy food and drink for oneself so that one is strong enough to benefit others, then again that would be permissible because one utilizes this money in order to then benefit others. So this is what one needs to think about, one's motivation. Whether one is really able to fulfill that motivation or not is a different matter. But one should make an effort to think along those lines, that one utilizes whatever one has to benefit others.
다버다 먼저 전주습에 도보시 장애 두저기 따땅사비 기제로 류롱제 기자다 제바 심징이 치도 못 사비 기제 다디제도 됐었던 것 같다 심징이 된저 외치도 되지 당이 있으네 됐었던 것 같다.
So in particular, those who have taken the Bodhisattva vow, then when you having taken the Bodhisattva vow, then you have already given away your body, your possession, your root virtues, everything that you use for your own enjoyment. You've actually given for the benefit of others, and we should remind ourselves, we should be mindful that those phenomena, those things, our body, our possessions, etc., are there to be utilized for the benefit of others.
산이 대승하고 쳐야지네. 주지 당도도 그거 정화도 처음에라 산이.
So tomorrow we'll meet again. We'll meet a little earlier here at 1:15. So this class will start at 1:15.
어디